First things first, in Chicago, rookie stud Justin Fields has looked the part in the preseason. Are the Bears making a big mistake not starting him? Speaking of rookies, did Trey Lance take the lead over Jimmy G in the Niners' ongoing QB battle? And you're not going to want to miss this. Our guy Nick going to unveil his top 10 NFL players this season. Coming up a little bit later on the show, I wonder where Patrick Mahomes will be. Probably third, maybe even fourth. And with that, we say good Monday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. She said sarcastically, it is good to be back. It is even better to have you guys back with us. I have missed you. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Kevin Wilds. Coach Eric Mangini with the rare early Monday morning appearance. I like it. We are worthy of his early Monday morning. Nick, how was your time off, buddy?
Yeah. Time off, wasn't off. Always working, Jenna. Do you know how long this top 10 list takes? It's 80 hours in the lab to get this perfect. That coming up in 29 minutes. Let's go. Let's go.
I love it. We are here, and we have a fantastic show for you today, and we are going to start this morning in Dallas talking some Dak Prescott. The Cowboys quarterback reportedly remains on track to play in the regular season opener 17 days from today down in Tampa. It was Jerry Jones evaluating Dak's throwing before the preseason game on Saturday. Take a listen.
I thought he threw with authority. He threw with confidence before the game. If we were lining up against Tampa tonight, he'd be starting, and we'd feel great about it. Dak has had so much work in his career. Really think about it. He's had a lot of snaps. And so let's don't get too bent out of shape because we aren't getting some time in these preseason games. I understand everybody's concerned. But if we were playing tonight and against Tampa, he would be out there starting. And the longer and the more rest that we can give this other, then the more we've stored up as the squirrel in winter, we've scored the nuts up in the tree for future time over these next 17 games and when we play our regular season games.
But hang on, because on Friday night, despite that, Adam Schefter dropping this little nugget regarding Dak's status. He said Dak is, quote, not fully back. He may not be back all season long. So, Nick, should Cowboys fans feel encouraged or discouraged about Dak?
No, they should obviously be discouraged. And Jerry Jones, as folksy as he wants to be, understands that quarterback reps are not like nuts that a squirrel saves up for winter that you have to then worry, it's going to be February, I'm not going to have any left. Darn it, shouldn't have played in the preseason. No, you'd like Dak Prescott out there getting snaps because even though Dak Prescott does have a massive amount of experience, he has no experience coming off that injury from last year and no experience dealing with this very odd under the shoulder, almost in the armpit area shoulder injury that I think is reasonable to say might be related to the ankle injury. Your footwork changes a bit, your mechanics change a bit, all of a sudden you tweak something. And if you're a Cowboys fan, you gotta feel like, man, it's always something. In 2015, Romo got hurt. In 2016, Romo gets hurt, but you end up with Dak and it ends up being fine. 2017, Zeke's suspension loomed over the whole season. 2018, it's like, wait, what did we forget? We don't have any wide receivers. We have to panic midseason, go get Amari Cooper. Last year, Dak obviously gets hurt. You'd like to go into a year feeling clean and healthy, and I don't think you can, Coach, no matter what Jerry Jones says. So I think they should be discouraged and concerned because the only path to the Cowboys being a very good team is through the right arm of Dak Prescott. And we haven't gotten to see him use that in almost a year now.
Yeah, Nick, maybe you could help me. Before I came on, I was looking up words that meant both disappointed and excited at the same time, because that's what Cowboys fans are when it comes to to Dak Prescott. I came up with tragicomic and bittersweet, and I'd say those are not bad, but I hope you can give me a different one. But you look at this, you sign your franchise quarterback to a $160 million contract, so you're excited. And then you realize that in the last 4 years, he's only been 5 games over 500, so then you're disappointed. He comes back from a terrible injury, and he's practicing. You're excited. Then he gets that shoulder injury. You're disappointed. Now they say he's probably going to play. You're excited. And now they say he's probably going to have the injury through the whole season. You're disappointed. And it's this constant roller coaster ride that you're trying to get off of with Dak. And I think the good news to the Cowboys is that there is plenty of time still before the start of the season. And the fact that he threw supposedly 50 passes in the prior to the preseason game means that he can deal with some volume. He's probably not going to throw 50 passes very many times. But going back to your point about coming back from this injury, that takes time too. And the arm's probably related to changes in his gait or changes in his mechanics due to the leg injury. So you don't really know where this is going to go. But I'd say you are at least happy with the fact that he was able to throw the volume that he was able to throw just recently.
Exactly. So call me crazy, but I'm encouraged by this, Coach. And I understand there is reasons to be pessimistic about it. He got pulled out of practice. He hasn't dressed. We're had to take count of pre-game snaps rather than in-game snaps. But here's the thing. Jerry Jones said no reason to worry. Dak Prescott says there would be no doubt that I would play against Tampa if we started. And I've got the actual numbers here. Michael Gehlken said he completed 51 of 52 passes. So that looks good for me. Now, I know that Nick wants him to get bounced around out there. But all the star quarterbacks aren't getting bounced around. Brady's had 1 drive in the preseason. Mahomes had 4. Rodgers, Josh Allen, and Lamar, none of them have a drive this preseason. So, Nick, I know you want to see him get bopped around, so maybe he can, get on a crowded subway or go to Six Flags and get on bumper cars. But for me, I'm okay with him sitting out for the whole preseason, show up at Tampa, and air it out.
Yeah, so I know this isn't a star quarterback, but I'll give you another name of a guy who I think it'd be good to get some reps. Joe Burrow. You know why? Because he had a devastating injury. Now, he was in a different part in his rehab. Those guys you mentioned, they're not coming off of 10 months of downtime where you do need, before you've got that Tampa D-line bearing down on you, ideally, some live action. But the other part of this that I think is it's very hard for me to understand how one can be encouraged is, let's just think about the little trickle of information and the sources of that information. First, you had Jay Glazer on, I think, the Hall of Fame broadcast say, hey, and the Cowboys, by the way, they've reached out to the Texas Rangers baseball team because they're a little flummoxed by Dak's injury. And it's like, oh, that's not great. And then I'm watching Joe Buck, newly minted Hall of Famer Joe Buck, with fellow Hall of Famer Troy Aikman. And Troy's like, hey, you know the Dallas Cowboys? I have a little history with them. Won 3 Super Bowls, played a decade, Hall of Famer for playing quarterback, actually. Oh. I think they're lying about about Dak's injury. He maybe didn't say it in those words, but he implied it. He was like, the Cowboys, I think maybe it's a little worse than we heard. And then you have Schefter, pretty, reputable reporter, be like, hey, guys, by the way, all year long he's going to be dealing with it. Like, week 1, yes, week 17 also, and everything in between. It's like, oh, Jay Glazer, Adam Schefter, and the Hall of Fame quarterback of the Cowboys have all said, guys, you should be worried about this. So, listen, I might have been on a beach somewhere drinking Mai Tais, but I'm like, hey, seems a little concerning, Coach. Like, I'd be a little worried if your uncle, your wife, and Bill Belichick were all like, hey, Coach Mangini, going through something, maybe check on him. Be like, hey, Coach, how are you doing, buddy? I've heard from reputable sources there could be a problem. So I'm a little worried about Dak.
Look, there's reason to be concerned, but the good news is that he is throwing with volume, and there is time, and they do have this period where they can keep him down, and I'm more concerned about how he's going to react in live action to the leg injury, and you have to go through that process. All the guys that you talked about, Wilds, weren't coming off major injuries, and this is a situation where it's hard. It's hard to get your body to react in that moment after coming back from something as traumatic as it is, and it takes time to adjust to that. So I'm concerned about that aspect of it. In terms of the arm injury, I do believe that it can be managed. Reaching out to baseball teams, that's not that uncommon. You want to get as much advice as you can when you're dealing with any injury. Did I love that it was on Hard Knocks? Did I love that they were sharing that? No, not necessarily, but that seems to be the Cowboys' way anyways. They they'll share those things, but it's not. We're not at an emergency level of concern right now. It's just mild Cowboy concern.
Yeah. And plus, maybe Jerry Jones is in denial, but he seems to think if the season started tonight, Dak would be ready to go. So he's got the utmost confidence in his quarterback. Much more on this still to come on the broadcast. But before we go to break, we do want to wish our friend and our colleague, Brandon Marshall, good luck. He's got some big upcoming projects that he is now heading off to work on. We had an absolute blast working with him for the past year, but he is moving on, and we are going to miss him. Kevin Wildes, I know you are too.
Yeah, so I want to say a few words here. First of all, love Brandon. Brandon, if you're up and watching, and I hope you are, even though you're not on the show anymore, you still need to get up for the 5 o'clock meeting just to listen, just to sort of ease out. It's like the opposite of a preseason. Postseason games should still be there on the call. So I've had a lot of TV projects, and sort of the goal of doing TV is to do three things, right? You want to be smart, you want to deliver smiles, you want to deliver surprises, and that's what you want to deliver to the audience. And luckily, by working with Brandon, I've had a front row seat to be the receiver of those things, just like you have in the audience. I've gotten smarter about the game of football, and certainly Brandon has given me like a great perspective and opened my mind to the world of mental health, and his advocacy is just second to none. He's delivered a lot of smiles. The guy's always fast with a Jets helmet and a number of Brooklyn Nets jersey, and he's delivered surprises too, whether it's like how good Ryan Fitzpatrick actually is and how he affects an organization, or like, hey, early on he's like, watch out for the Suns. And we're like, the Suns? And we're all laughing at him. And we're like, and it turns out the Suns are pretty good. So that's what you saw in front of the camera. Behind the camera, I wanted to share a few things too. The guy was a great teammate. And when you're looking for a teammate, you want someone that is making you better and that you have a chance to make them better. And Brandon, after the show a lot of times, he would call me and I would call him and we'd chat back and forth. And he said, Wildes, you should do this and this. And I said, yeah, thank you. I think, Brandon, you should do a little bit more of this, less of this, make this way. He's like, yeah, I got you. And we would do that a lot. And I wanted to share one of the times that's really stuck with me as we wish him goodbye, or temporarily. He called me up one day after the show. And I thought we had a good show. And he called me right after the post-show meeting. He said, Wildes. I said, hey, buddy, what's up? He said, can I give you some advice? I'm like, yeah, but we have an open relationship at this point. So it's like the fact that he's asking, it makes me think it's pretty serious. I'm like, yeah, Brandon, of course. You can tell me anything you want. He said, Wildes, I don't want to hurt your feelings here. I said, what is it? He goes, you should never wear that shirt, tie, and lapel combo again. I said, Brandon, that's it? He's like, yeah. He's like, you're a good-looking guy. You had too much going on. Yeah. I said, is that it? Is there any TV stuff? He's like, no.
It was a bad look, Wildes.
No.
He was right.
He's like, no, just dress
He took
simple.
the bullet. We were all thinking.
So I will miss him. I'll miss our conversation. We'll still be good friends. Obviously, he's got a million things going on. It's been an absolute privilege to work with him for the past year.
I'll be quick. Because I've talked to Brandon personally since this. I want to thank Brandon. He picked us up in a time when the show needed it. It would have, of course, been great to continue working with him. However, we've joked about Brandon having a lot of stuff going on. He does. He has the gym. He has the media empire, all of this. But His real passion, and where I think he has the ability to make the biggest impact on the world, is what he's going to be doing with Jada and the Red Table Talk in combining athletics and mental health. And that's where he's one of one in the world. He had some of that platform on this show. He'll have more of it in that. So he's going off to do what he was kind of put here to do in this phase of his life. So I'm happy for him. I appreciate him, and I wish him all the best. And if Ryan Fitzpatrick actually plays well this year, it's about a 4% chance of he'll demand to come on as a guest to do a victory lap. So I'm sure we'll see him if that happens, Jenna.
There's going to be 9 victory laps for all the things Brandon has predicted over the past year. Nick very well said, Brandon, we do wish you all the best. We never worked out, buddy, but we got nothing but time right now. So anytime you want, the platform is right here. All right. We have to take a break. Still to come here on a Monday morning. Did Trey Lance take the lead in the 49ers QB battle over the weekend? To be discussed next. This is First Things First. Time now for a Prime Performance, brought to you by 365 by Whole Foods Market, the splurgiest way to save. You guys see Trey Lance last night? He led 2 touchdown drives on the final 3 series in the Niners win over the Chargers. He looked good out there. So does head coach Kyle Shanahan now have a quarterback controversy on his hands heading into the season? Take a listen.
Just open the camp saying it's Jimmy's the starter, not an open competition, but obviously everybody's competing. Has anything done much to change that dynamic as you go into the 3rd preseason game?
No, I haven't seen that. I would love for it to be more and more each week, but, I think the situation is pretty similar right now.
Are you going to make an announcement? Is Jimmy Garoppolo your starter week 1?
No, we're not making that announcement. Let's try though.
Yeah, A for effort. Hey, take a look at the numbers here. Trey Lance, a little more inconsistent, but those splash plays already showing up. So let's play a little draw in a blank here. Nick, I'll start with you. The 49ers quarterback battle has been blank.
Well, let's start the week off with a quote from the greatest character on the greatest show ever, Calvin Bodie Broadus. The game is rigged, yo. The quarterback battle has been rigged. Listen, folks, Jimmy G is going to start week 1 almost no matter what, assuming there is no injury or disaster, because the Niners need him to be listed as a starting quarterback in order to keep his trade value somewhat alive. The moment they go to Lance, then all of a sudden, your ability to get a really good 2nd-round pick and something for Jimmy G probably goes away, because the whole league knows you're moving on from him 100% after this year. So I don't think this has been a fair, open competition. I think it's been rigged. And by the way, I understand why they're doing it. It's not a criticism. I think it's just the reality of it, because you have seen enough, to me, Coach, from Trey Lance to know, obviously, his upside's far higher than Jimmy G's, and they signaled that when they traded 3 first-round picks in order to get him. So for all those reasons, I think if it's a fair competition, Trey maybe wins, but it's not a fair competition. So I think it's going to be Jimmy G. I think the thing's been rigged.
Yeah, you're right. It's been rigged. It was rigged ever since Trey Lance was drafted. But it's not rigged in the way that you're thinking, where they're trying to maintain trade value whatsoever. I think the process has actually been well managed. When you look at what they traded away, and the fact that there's been no pushback from fans, from Jimmy G, from the media, about the fact that Jimmy G is still listed as a starter, even though we know that Trey Lance is coming in quick. There's been no pushback from the fact that Trey is going to have a role every single game in a package of plays. Nobody said, well, is that going to affect Jimmy G as a starter and his performance? And then there's been no pushback in the fact that a true starter, hasn't been named, and that's very rare too. Everywhere else, usually there's a lot of clamoring for the head coach to make that decision and make it by now. So I think this has actually been extremely well managed on the part of the 49ers. Even last night's game, Jimmy G has the most Jimmy G drive going. 16 plays, he has 3 completions and an interception. But to start the season, it's probably better to have him in there while Trey continues to learn. He gets meaningful snaps in a role, still helps the team win, and there's general harmony across the board.
General harmony.
See, I agree with that, Coach, and I will try to be inspired by you and get general harmony, because there is a take out there percolating on social media and on TV that gets down into the bowels of my soul and upsets me. And it's when everyone says, you got to start Trey if you want a deep playoff run. When everyone knows that Jimmy G was literally in the Super Bowl, you don't need to start Trey Lance. He might be a good player. He is the future of the 49ers, but Jimmy G can bring you deep into the playoffs. Jimmy G, can you bring you to the Super Bowl? Because he literally did. He literally did. It's not a take. It's just a fact. Okay, so Mr. 22-8. My answer is Week 6 preview. When you look at the 49ers schedule, we are going to come back to this is the quarterback controversy at Week 6. Why is that? Because Week 3, 4, and 5, you're playing Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray. Now, if Jimmy G struggles, I think, although you have said it's well managed, Coach, there is going to be a rising drumbeat of like, man, we just got beaten by 3 teams with their main quarterback, 3 great quarterbacks. We have a temporary kind of like substitute teacher here. We know where our future lies. Let's start Trey Lance against the Colts. Even though the Colts have a monster defense, Nick, I think that we're going to have another quarterback controversy coming at Week 6.
Well, and if they are trying to goose Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value, those first, while weeks 3, 4, and 5, those are potentially good teams. I don't know if I believe in the Cardinals, but certainly weeks 3 and 4. Those are 5 straight mediocre to bad defenses. I know Dan Campbell's got those guys out there eating kneecaps, but I'm not that worried about them. The Eagles stink. The Packers are a mediocre defense. The Seahawks stunk last year, and the Cardinals are not a great, well, we'll see with some of the additions. I don't think the Cardinals will be a great defense. But Wild, my God, man, you've got to get over the Super Bowl. Did you see the pick he threw? Because I know the Jimmy G apologists out there, can we show it again? It'll be like, Brandon Ayuk, come down with it. It's a wide open, easy pitch and catch that's high and long, and because of that, it ends up getting picked. Could Ayuk have caught it? Yeah, maybe, and then possibly gets lit up. But your whole fascination, this guy led his team to the Super Bowl. The last 3 prior to Brady, NFC Super Bowl quarterbacks are the great list of Nick Foles, 3rd stringer, Jared Goff, just traded him away plus a pick to get off him, and Jimmy G. Maybe making the Super Bowl does not necessarily mean you're a great quarterback, Wilds. So no, you got to get over it, man. Jenna, I mean, week 1 this year, that has to be done. You have another 2.5 weeks. But week 1, we've got to be done talking, he made a Super Bowl, Coach. We got to be done with it, Coach.
Knowing what we know about Kevin Wild, not going to be done. Not going to be done. Right. We just know this is going to go on another whole season. By the way, 20 days until the Niners open the season against the Lions on Fox. And then you can see Jared Goff right there. Stick with football because Nick has a list to unveil. Who are his top 10 NFL players heading into this season? I love how we talk about Nick like he's not even sitting right next to me. We'll tell you next. First things first, rolling on a Monday morning. Last night, the NFL Network continued to unveil the top 100 players of 2021 as voted on by the players. They revealed numbers 11 through 20 on the list. So what do you think that means? Well, logic tells us we now know the top 10 players on the list, and you should know it too. In alphabetical order, where Nick, Kevin, and I are always last, that group includes Davante Adams, Josh Allen, the GOAT, Aaron Donald, Derrick Henry, D-Hop, Mahomes, and Travis Kelce, and the MVP, Aaron Rodgers, and T.J. Watt. So, Nick, take this in. That is their top 10. You got your own top 10, though, that we don't have to wait until Sunday to see. Take us through it.
Correct. So, listen, NFL Network, it's not a bad job. It's a passing grade. You got 7 out of 10 correct. But T.J. Watt, I hate to say it, but Josh Allen and Davante Adams are not top 10 players in the NFL. Here are your top 10 players in the NFL. They are all the best at something. Coming in at number 10, Tom Brady. He is the best. I got to give him credit. I guess he's the best leader in the NFL. And that applies not only to his own team, but to the opposing team. Like, he can mind meld the opposition. Hey, you're down 8 in the NFC Championship game. Kick a field goal. He can mind meld the officials in the Super Bowl. Hey, pass interference, it's got to be catchable. No, it doesn't. It just has to be a Tom Brady incompletion. Where he goes, winning follows. He's the 10th best player in the NFL, the best leader. Number 9 on the list. The best middle linebacker, the best linebacker in the NFL, 24-year-old phenom Fred Warner. He was not in the top 10 on the NFL's list, or he's not, I think he was like 21 on their list. He is the linchpin of the dominant 49ers defense. He got paid as such. He's your 9th best player in the sport. Number 8, the best tight end in the NFL, coming off quietly the best tight end season ever. The most yards ever by a tight end in the season. If you add the playoffs, he had over 1,700 yards, dozen touchdowns. I think it passes Ditka's season 60 years ago and Gronk's season a decade ago as the best season by a tight end ever. 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Best tight end in football. He's number 8. Number 7, the best the best defensive end in the NFL. Number 6, the best wide receiver, Myles Garrett. The guy has been nearly a sack a game for the last 3 seasons. His production's unbelievable, and he's doing it without a great back end behind him. So not a lot of coverage sacks he's getting. He's doing that even though everyone knows they got to stop him. Number 6 is the best wide receiver in football, DeAndre Hopkins. Doesn't matter who his quarterback is. Doesn't matter what the system is. Doesn't matter what the situation is. He's your best wide receiver with the best hands, most consistent production in the league. Now we get to the top 5. The only true shutdown corner we've got in the league. We got a lot of guys that are close. Jalen Ramsey's the only real one. After week 1 last year, my guy allowed 24 catches on the season. 11 games held the opposing receiver to 25 or fewer yards. He's the best corner in football. Number 4, the best quarterback in the NFC, Aaron Rodgers. The guy's got no holes in his game, seems totally at peace with where he's at. Dominant last year, expecting to be dominant again this year, and now your top 3 players in the league. Number 3, I think he's a little underrated, Derrick Henry. I thought he couldn't duplicate what he did in 2019. Instead, he was 30% better. He is single-handedly bringing back the value of a true running-only running back. Oh, you guys want to catch 100 balls. You want to be able to go out in the slot. How about I just pound you with my fist repeatedly? That's what Derrick Henry does, 3rd best player in the sport. 2nd best player in the sport. I think he's overtaken J.J. Watt as the best defensive player of his era. What Watt did in the early part of this decade, I don't know if anyone will ever be at that level for 3 years. But Aaron Donald now for 6 years has been the best defensive lineman, maybe the best defender in the sport. He's number 2. And number 1, and I will tell the audience this, it's obviously Mahomes. Everyone knows it's Mahomes. If you come out with a list and you don't have Mahomes, you're trolling. But on this list, would you believe Patrick Mahomes, not only has he never been number 1 on this list, he's never been top 3 on this list, which is why the list I'm giving you is obviously superior to the one the NFL is going to give you, because never been top 3? Oh, Mahomes, most talented quarterback of all time, never been top 3. Okay, good, smart. Yeah, we like that. He's the best player in the league. Everyone knows he's the best player in the league. You wouldn't trade him for Donald, Henry, and Ramsey. He's the most valuable guy in football. He's number 1. There it is. That's your top 10. I took a long time there because I assume this part will be very short because it's just going to be congratulations. Nick, great to have you back. That's a perfect top 10. I thank you. I assume that's what Coach going to say.
Nick, I love your list, and it always excites me when you put one together. It doesn't surprise me that you were wrong on a lot of these. But there were some that I think were very good takes. I love the Fred Warner addition to the top 10. I agree that his impact has been incredible, and I think he's worthy of being in this list. I think you got Tom Brady about 9 spots off. I'd put Tom Brady at number 1, yes. And here's why: is I know that you want to undervalue the impact that a quarterback has on a whole team, because of course, why would you want the quarterback to impact the whole team? But what Tom was able to do in going to Tampa Bay and bring them to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, it's amazing. And I didn't think he could do it. I underestimated him, and he did it. And that's why I'd put him at 1. I'd put the quarterbacks 1, 2, and 3. I'd have Mahomes at 2. I'd have Aaron Rodgers at 3. And then for me, I'd move Aaron Donald to 4 and Derrick Henry to 5. I think you made a mistake by not including Adams. He's got a higher catch percentage than Hopkins does. His numbers were pretty staggering last year and have been staggering over time. And it's not like there's always been a second threat where they couldn't concentrate and try to take him away. And I actually had Kelsey a little bit higher. I had him more at 7 than 8, because again, his catch percentage is ridiculous. I think it's like 77% in his career. I don't know where that ranks him all time, but it's got to be up in the top, 4 or 5% ever. So I like that. With the other players, I think you can go either way. There's a lot of guys that could slide in and out of the top 10. T.J. Watt, you can make an argument for. And it was nice. You did a nice job. You did some good things. But obviously the biggest mistake is where you put Brady.
Okay, so let me just address that real quick before we go to Wilds. Because I don't want to hear, Nick hating on Brady. Not hating on Brady. Giving Brady massive respect.
What are you talking about? He's number 10.
I have him on this list.
How do you not hate on him?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. All I did, I had him above Russell Wilson, who's better than him. I had him above Lamar Jackson, who's better than him. I had him above Josh Allen, who just had a far better year than him, because at this point, I just understand. Like, you're right. Like, I have to there is something metaphysical with Tom that you can't quantify. Some folks would say, I prefer my quarterback not throw 3 second-half interceptions in a conference championship game. But it doesn't matter for him. So, that's me giving him massive credit, Wilds, but having him ahead of Mahomes, Coach, it's too much. Coach, it's too much.
I know
it's a bridge too far.
You prefer your quarterback with 1 Super Bowl ring. I prefer my quarterback with 7.
Okay, all right. It's not a lifetime achievement list. All right, Wilds, go ahead.
Let's just look at last year.
I'm just going to pile on the Brady thing. I'm going to give you an out. I'm going to give you an out, Nick. If LeBron...
I don't want an out.
All of a sudden became a free agent. I'm just going to put it in your world. Just going to switch it up for you. If LeBron became a free agent and said, you know what, I'm going to sign with the Pelicans. We would all say, you know what, Pelicans, chance to win the NBA championship. And I'd be like, Nick, why? The Pelicans? You'd be like, well, he affects the game. He affects the game on offense. He affects the tone of the team. He affects a championship mentality that they're missing. He makes everyone better. Watch how good Zion gets with him. That's exactly what Tom Brady does. And you give LeBron all the credit for doing that stuff. But Tom Brady went to a team that was 7-9, and next thing you know, they're winning the Super Bowl. So why don't you apply the same GOAT status that you give to Brady, or excuse me, that you give to LeBron, give it to Brady too. That's a nice little olive branch to you. You're already kind of got the framework. Just extend it to Brady.
Stop it. I do apply the same GOAT status. Brady is the greatest quarterback ever, but that is not a contemporaneous ranking. And I don't know what the LeBron comp of the previous year going out in the first round of the playoffs on a pick 6 against Ryan Tannehill would be in basketball. But if that's what LeBron had come from, if LeBron was like, well regarded as like the 18th best player in the sport, and then went and won a championship with the Pelicans, he would go back into the top 10. Would he be number 1? I don't know. But there are only 2 other quarterbacks on the list. I have Brady. Russell Wilson's not on there. Josh Allen's not on there. Lamar's not on there. Baker's not on there. I kind of wanted to put Justin Herbert on there just to watch Coach's head explode. I need to see it for 7 years before it's real. But I didn't. I put Brady and his black magic on the list. And I think he'll be even better this year because if you saw the equipment, not the equipment manager, the ball boy is his son. And we know it's very important for Tom to have the balls prepared exactly the way he wants them. So I assume his son will help him with that. And so you got the whole thing going for him. But 10 is as high as I can go. That's as high as I can go, Wilds. It's too much. My God, trying to make him number one.
It's sad that you can't give him credit for the impact that he has on a new organization.
Actually, Brady was ranked 14th on this list last season, and that was his lowest ranking since 2011. So both the players and Nick have him up there, so there's something. All right, we got to head to Chicago. Bears are sticking. See, I got you, Nick. Bears seem to be sticking with Andy Dalton. Are they making a big mistake? Big, huge. Leaving Justin Fields on the sideline. We'll discuss next. His name is Justin Fields. He should be on the field. See what I did there? Back here, first things first, with Coach Mangini and Brandon Flowers joining us now. Guys, let's head to Chicago, where the Bears have a decision to make at quarterback. They got the veteran Andy Dalton, who looked, I'll say it, he looked pretty awful on Saturday against the Bills. He struggled to piece drives together throughout the first half. Listen, I can say it, my words, my takes. That's what I thought. Justin Fields came on for his work. He looked better at times. Here's head coach Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy after preseason game 2 on the state of his quarterbacks.
The stock of Andy for us is going to be something for us is seeing what he does during the season. You know, that's how we got to be able to see what can Andy do during the season with this team and with these guys. That has been our plan this whole entire time. At the same point in time, we also need to evaluate and see where Justin's at and what he can do. And again, he's doing everything that we're asking him to do. He's doing great. So I think it's a good situation for us, and I truly understand the I don't know what the word would be, but the want for people to want to see more Justin and all that. I get that. But we also understand where we're at and what the true plan is. And all we can do is ask Justin to keep playing, and he's doing it, and Andy to keep playing, and Nick to keep playing.
Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at the numbers this preseason for both guys, for Dalton and for Fields. Just that one touchdown pass for each. Fields, though, you know he's got that added running dimension to his game. Nick, let me start with you. What do you make of Nagy sticking with Andy Dalton as the Bears' starting quarterback heading into the season?
Yeah, it's obviously a mistake, and it's something I don't even think he wants to do, but it feels pretty obvious to me the Bears are suffering the consequences of having made a bad promise. They made a promise without giving themselves an out. I did this once. Prior to working for Fox, I moved around a lot with my family, and when we were down in Houston, I thought we were moving to Los Angeles, and then we ended up not moving. It was about a year before my son was senior in high school, and I promised him, I'm like, listen, now that we're done with that scare, I promise you we will not move for your senior year. About 2 months later, Fox offered me the job. I'd made that promise without giving myself an out, and I ended up commuting Houston to Los Angeles for a year. Did I enjoy that? No. Was my wife happy about it? No. But I had made a promise without giving myself an out of, unless something crazy happens. The Bears signed Andy Dalton, Brandon, to me it's pretty obvious, and promised him he would be the week 1 starter. And they did not give the out of, unless, we draft a quarterback who's demonstrably better than you. And because of that, and because I don't think they want to lose credibility with future free agents, they don't want to break their word publicly, they are going to go down the hole of, well, we got to keep our promise, even though I don't think anybody wants to. So I think that's where they're at. I think Justin Fields will, in short order, be the starter, but they have to keep their promise to Andy Dalton, and that's why he's going to be the week 1 starter.
Nick, I understand what you're saying when you say the Bears and Matt Nagy probably promised Andy Dalton a starting role coming in, but loyalty means nothing in the NFL. You know who else promised a quarterback a starting role? Seattle Seahawks to Matt Flynn, and they gave him a big deal. But you know what? When Russell Wilson came in, guess who was the week 1 starter because of his play, how the team rallied around him, and what the fan base thought of him. Right now, this Bears franchise, they've been praying for decades for a guy like Justin Fields to come in. And when he comes in preseason and light it up the way he does, you have to roll with a hot hand. Matt Nagy, if he starts Justin Fields, this is not trial error. You're not taking a big risk. There's been a case study. It's been young quarterbacks that's been starting on day 1 that was successful. You know, you got the Deshaun Watsons, you have the Lamar Jacksons, you have the Dak Prescott, the Russell Wilsons. Patrick Mahomes was the starter in year 2, but it's been proven this isn't the late 90s, early 2000s where quarterbacks got to sit now. You got to roll with a hot hand. You know, maybe Matt Nagy knows something we don't know, whereas his job is safe if he goes 1-5 at the beginning of the season, he can make that switch. But these fans, they don't care about that time. They want this guy Justin Fields in there now. And you got to start on week 1 and keep that electricity in that stadium.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Brandon. The promises don't necessarily mean anything. Things change, and as much as you may have committed to someone, if someone else comes in and is better, then you're going to make that switch, and that happens. I don't think this is a function of trying to be legitimate or send a message to future free agents, because this administration won't be there unless the Bears win this season anyway. So it'll be a new head coach dealing with free agents if they're unsuccessful. Now, what I think this is more about is maybe Justin isn't ready to play at this point, and you want to make sure that he's got the best opportunity when he goes in to be successful. And lighting it up in the preseason doesn't always translate into success at all, because there isn't game planning. It's very simplified. If you can give him an opportunity to sit for even a few weeks and see what game planning is like, to go through that process, to give him more time to understand how this works, he could be in a better situation. You saw him get blown up against Buffalo, and part of that is something that he should have been able to get out of. The linebacker clearly walks up on the edge. The protection is going to the left. It's obvious there's only one real threat that could hit him, and he sends the protection to the left and doesn't get out of it, and you know, gets lit up. And this is what you don't want to happen, especially if you don't have the most solid offensive line. You don't want to get this kid killed early, and I'm not saying you want to get anybody killed early, but at least Andy should be able to get in and out of protections and be able to ideally get into better situations if problems come up that a young guy typically isn't going to see.
So, Coach, they play the Rams on the road week 1. Do you think this is a specific, like, Aaron Donald decision where it's like, man, we don't want to play the Rams defense, you know, on the road. We've got the Bengals at home week 2, but like, let's just put Dalton out for week 1 and then maybe make the switch later on, but have you avoid like the league's best defense in your first game?
Yeah, Andy Dalton has the shortest runway of any starter, and that's obvious. But going into week 1 against a very difficult defense, against a defense that can give you multiple looks, that can give you multiple coverages, to be able to go in with a veteran that can get you in and out of plays, can get you in and out of protections. It's not saying that Justin doesn't have the capacity to do that. It's just Andy's in a better position to do that early. And the worst case scenario is when you have a young, talented guy that goes in and gets beat up in the early part of the season because he's just not ready. Then you've made a mistake as a coach to put him in a position that he wasn't as ready for as he could have been, especially when you have a veteran guy that can carry the water for a little while.
But I've heard this before. The starter, the veteran, might not be as mobile, but he's going to be able to get us in and out of protections. We don't want to throw him in, to Lions Den week 1. And that's actually how Deshaun Watson's career started. Deshaun Watson, week 1, his rookie year, the Texans are playing the Jags. And this is 2017 when the Jags had that awesome defense. And in the brilliant wisdom of Bill O'Brien, he's like, nope, not starting a rookie. Tom Savage is our starter. And in that first half, Tom Savage was sacked 6 times, fumbled twice, and at halftime they're like, oh my God, go to the kid. And he never looked back. And could that same situation play out because the Bears have a bad offensive line potentially? I know it's obviously early, but it's not rated to be great. Yeah, it could. I want to ask Brandon this question, though. Brandon, I assume that Andy Dalton in practice has looked like Andy Dalton. Wilds during the break was like, oh, I got to find my bad Andy Dalton stats. And I just text him a screenshot of his last 4 years. It's like, hey, there you go, all of them. If in practice the players are seeing that Justin Fields is the better option, Can that start your season off on a sour note if they are putting Andy Dalton out there, even if Fields is out playing him in practice?
Nick, it won't necessarily start the season out on a sour note. You would just look at it as like, let's just trust the coaches. And even though we know Justin Fields is a hot hand, I mean, coach, he has to make these calls, and let's just trust him to say, like Coach Mangini mentioned, we're going to get lined up in protection, and we'll see how it goes. But if Justin Fields takes that starting role on starting day, it's a different type of energy. The team want to rally around him. You'll see your defense get more turnovers because they feel like right now we got the players in place to play that we need to win games and make a run in this division right now. So the players will take their play to another level, knowing, hey, the guy that we know should be starting behind center is there, and let's go out there and just win some games. So it's a different electricity amongst that franchise.
Still have to face Aaron Donald week 1, though, against the Rams. I'm not sure he wants that. By the way, guys, if you watch this Bears preseason game, you heard fans pretty vocal about their quarterback choice to the point they were booing Andy Dalton and chanting for Justin Fields. The rookie talked about it after the game. Listen to what he had to say.
Yeah, I noticed it. Of course, the fans are awesome getting me out there, but they also have to realize, Andy's a human being too. Andy's out there on the field right now. So I really just think it's kind of disrespectful to Andy, them cheering my name out like that. And, they have to, trust in coach to, make sure he's making the right decisions and, just cheer Andy on. Like that's not helping Andy play better. Them cheering my name, that's not doing none of that. So, I would say, my advice to them would be just cheer for who's out there playing on the field.
Brandon, I know that was the right thing to say. It was also a great thing to say. I love that from the rookie. What did you make of that from Fields?
I like it. Andy Dalton is his teammate, and you can see Andy Dalton taking him under his wing. When you don't want your guy who you are competing against to, get booed by the crowd or the crowd uplifts you, that shows that this guy's been showing you nothing but love. He wants you to succeed when you get on the field. So I understand that. But Justin Fields also needs to know this fan base, they haven't had a quarterback of your caliber in the past couple decades. So when you step on that field, they're putting their hands up saying, thank you, God. We can't wait to see you take another snap, play the whole game if you can. Like, I understand. He needs to understand, what he means to that city. But at the end of the day, Andy Dalton, he's not a scrub. He has taken his team to playoff berth. So to boo Andy Dalton, that is kind of disrespectful because if that's going to be your starter, it's hard as a football team to get going in the first couple weeks because if you turn the ball over early in the first quarter and make a couple bad throws, they're going to boo early. And how can your offense get in sync if your fan base is doing that to your QB1?
That's right.
Yeah, it'll be a tough way to start the season if it's
I loved it, but
go ahead.
I loved it by Justin Fields. I thought that was the right thing to say. I think they probably have a great relationship. Knowing Andy, I would imagine he's mentoring him, and I think that it just shows you the character of Justin, and that's something to be excited about.
That's right.